Welcome to this training presentation on ALMR Grant Guidance, a companion to the Grant Guide located in the Members section of the ALMR website. As public safety agencies, we are aware that communications, and especially our radio communications, are essential for first responders and other field operations during routine business and in major emergencies. It is important to determine upgrade schedules and keep equipment updated and in a usable condition. Oftentimes, we will notice that radios and other communication equipment are not updated in the same manner as other tools may be. This equipment maintenance and replacement schedule are essential to ensure that communications are reliable. This represents a large investment, and therefore ALMR has provided some guidance on grants and other funding that may be available to you depending on the category of agency that you operate. Before discussing specific grant funding, let's talk about equipment replacement and those requirements briefly. Subscriber units owned by our members, such as aircraft, portable, and mobile radios, require periodic maintenance and upkeep in order to be reliable for public safety communications. There's different factors that may necessitate maintenance or replacement. However, all subscriber units require some form of maintenance on a periodic basis. Check with your dealer or manufacturer on the specific steps that are required for preventative maintenance for your units. Some of this maintenance may be able to occur in-house within your agency, while other types of maintenance may require specialized equipment or may require sending it to a manufacturer or dealer facility for maintenance and repair. Replacement of subscriber units typically is attributed to normal wear and tear, contributing to equipment failure, changes in operating conditions and requirement by our agencies, and technology changes. A recent example of technology changes is the phasing in the last few years to TDMA Phase 2, which has required many end-of-life units in our agencies to be replaced. This equipment replacement should be planned through a schedule if possible. In order to determine a replacement schedule, know what the maintenance and replacement schedules are for your equipment. Make sure you check with your dealer for expected life expectancy and other details before you purchase. Most equipment has an end of life, and you should plan for replacement. Because a dealer or manufacturer has declared a particular unit end of life does not necessarily mean that it needs to be immediately replaced. However, our members should be aware that end-of-life units may not be able to be repaired as effectively, or you may not be able to obtain replacement parts or accessories quite as easily. Remember, when talking about equipment replacement, you're talking about the main subscriber units themselves, but also think about accessories such as batteries, remote speaker mics, and other accessories or features that you may use in your agency. If possible, use budget planning tools to level out purchases. There's advantages and disadvantages to this approach. Generally, most agencies would like their fleet to be uniform with the same models and type of equipment. However, that requires periodic, very large purchases in order to keep that consistent and have the replacement schedule uniform. In other ways, you can replace subscriber units periodically, which levels out the purchases throughout the years instead of requiring capital outlay or other types of fundraising all at once. The answer and the best way to approach this is based on your agency, your budget, and your needs. There are several different funding sources that may be available for communications. Federal grants have two different categories, formula and project grants, and they're listed at grants.gov. Within the state of Alaska, the Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management is typically the pass-through agency for federal grants for the state of Alaska, including common grants that our members have used for radio equipment and communications in the past. Depending on the status of your agency, you may be able to do fundraising such as gaming and special events, or receive business and corporate or foundation donations. Typically, these are reserved for agencies that are operating on a nonprofit basis. If you are considering a grant application that you have identified, there are several steps to put together the application. First off, read the Notice of Funding Opportunity, sometimes referred to as the NOFO, carefully. There are often requirements in these documents, and the documents can be lengthy. So be sure you identify all requirements within the grant application process, both for what needs to be submitted and any particular post-award reporting or requirements. For instance, some federal grants have very specific funding conditions that must be met, perhaps not by your agency, but by your jurisdiction as a whole, such as the city or borough. If you're unsure of any requirements, be sure you contact the granting agency point of contact, which should be listed in the Notice of Funding Opportunity, or other resources inside your organization for guidance. Many grant applications require prerequisite administrative tasks that are done, such as registration in the system for award management, having audited financials available, or other things. If you have finance or grant expertise in your organization, chances are many of these prerequisites may already be completed, but check with them before you start the grant application process, and do not leave them for the last minute, as some of these can take quite a bit of lead time in order to process. Oftentimes, not having these prerequisites done will disqualify your application. Be sure you know what the process in your jurisdiction or organization is for grant applications. For instance, there may be an internal process to gain approval before you submit a grant application, and you may have post-award approval processes as well. Some cities or boroughs may require approval of your governing body before you submit the application, or if you're a nonprofit or other type of organization, your board of directors. Be sure you're familiar with the process both internally in your organization and externally with the granting agency and all requirements before you proceed. Once you are done with the administrative requirements, you are now able to move on to the proposal components. These are typical components of a proposal, which may include things like the cover letter, needs statement, goals and objectives, budget, and sustainability. However, you must read the Notice of Funding Opportunity carefully and match exactly how the notice says to put forth your grant application. Oftentimes, federal grant applications are much more strict in their process, but foundation grants or other private types of grants may be more lax, or you may have more flexibility to add certain types of information. Be aware that there are often page limits and what counts towards those page limits in your application. Sometimes you can add attachments and other things that don't count towards your page limit, but oftentimes a needs statement or a narrative summary may be limited. So be sure not to go over those limits, or else again your application may be disqualified or you may lose points in the ranking. On the ALMR website, the ALMR Grant Guide has two attachments that may be helpful for you in starting to develop your grant application. One is a sample summary statement. The other is specifically for those that are migrating to TDMA Phase 2 and are requesting funding for this. Look for the ALMR Grant Guide and use the language that are provided in these attachments to customize to your particular jurisdiction and use case. Grant applications are often highly competitive. Make sure that you follow the tips for success shown here. Be sure you write clearly and concisely. Make sure every substantiation is claimed with evidence. Answer every part of questions, and make sure you have a disinterested party proofread it. And my suggestion would be to have more than one person proofread it at each step. Make sure you're not doing any typographical errors, inconsistent fonts, grammar errors. Use a Word document or another type of tool to check your grammar. Make sure that you get things in before the deadline, especially when dealing with Grant portals and other electronic grant submissions leave plenty of time to account for technical errors and other roadblocks. You can view all federal grant opportunities at grants.gov, where you can search and create alerts for specific types, such as communications. The ALMR website has some grant information located in the membership section, which includes the grant guide we've talked about and links to other documents. Please don't hesitate to contact the Operations Management and System Management offices for any type of assistance or guidance as you prepare your grant application. Oftentimes we can help with technical information or other types of information you may need for your grant. The System Management Office can be reached through the ALMR Help Desk, and the contact information for the Operations Management Office is available on your screen.